Greetings, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Dreamscapes. Today we have our friend Kern Carter, writer and author from Toronto, Canada, if I could not mumble my words. We're going to get right back to him in just 2 seconds. Would you kindly like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, always need more volunteer dreamers. Also, 15 currently available works of historical dream literature. Most recent book, book 15, The World of Dreams, originally penned by Havelock Ellis, I believe in 1911. Good stuff. Put a lot of hard work into those. Highly footnoted, cross-referenced in the back and all that good stuff. You can find all this and more at benjaminthedreamwizard.com, a books list, audio versions of the podcast. And that's enough about me. Thank you for that. Back to our friend Kern. Thanks for being here. I appreciate your time.
I'm excited. This is the most unique podcast I think I've ever been on. So I'm really down to talk about this.
Right on. I've had a lot of people say that. And as I was saying, well, in the last episode, if anyone watched it, I did a little bit of market research before I jumped into this saying, are other people already doing this kind of thing? Really, nobody's doing exactly this. So I'm like, hopefully it's unique enough. It gets its own audience for people who are interested and not too niche that nobody cares. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, I think everybody dreams. So I'm hoping that you do really well with it.
That's one thing I thought too. I'm like, and that suits me from the business angle of like, I'm going to get into something that's universal. It's and evergreen type of content, but also that is a unifying factor across, there's so many divisive podcasts are built around arguing and butting heads and making demands and pronouncements about their worldview. All I care about is we all share this common experience and it can be made useful to us personally in some meaningful way. That's really, I can't hope strongly enough that this succeeds in the way I imagine it could. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're 110 in, so you're getting there.
Right. Episode 110. That is amazing. That's about, one a week for 2 years now. So hopefully it won't take the full 10 years to become an overnight success. We'll find out. But that's enough about me. Let's talk about you. And so you have a book that might have been recently released. It is called Boys and Girls Screaming, available on Amazon, link in the description. What is that about and how did you come to write it?
Yeah, good question. So Boys and Girls Screaming just basically is about a group of teenagers and they all suffered some kind of like trauma or some kind of traumatic event in their life and they decide to form a group. And the group, it's a healing group. There are no adults allowed in this group, no teachers, no parents, no adults, period. And they named the group Boys and Girls Screaming. So that's really like what the basic summary of the book is about. And when you bring kids together and they take adults, there's just chaos after that. That's really what happened. Chaos.
Okay, so this is not, say, a fiction book, but more of a biographical exploration of a real event.
No, it's fiction. Totally fiction.
Okay.
I made it up. Yeah, made it up. Totally made it up. I just kind of had that concept. I wasn't thinking about this when I wrote it. After I started getting it, I kind of felt it had that Breakfast Club vibe, where it's just a group of kids just having, like, getting together, just kind of their own thing. So there's serious parts to it and stuff. A book that touches on mental health and stuff, but really the stories about this group of friends that are just figuring themselves out.
Very cool. And that's a great comparison to the Breakfast Club. I think every generation needs that kind of an exploration of what are our current youth experiencing in a certain way at this specific time in culture, because it does change. I mean, as much as there are universal themes that always come back in adolescence and growing and whatnot, there's very often unique challenges. I mean, we've talked to a lot of people in recent episodes about the current modern challenge of social media. It's something that never existed. When I was a kid, not a thing. And, for a lot of people, yeah. I don't know if that plays into it at all, or so if we
it totally does. It totally does. The thing is, what I wanted to do was that the kids actually meet in real life. So that's a big thing, because I didn't want it's set in this time in this generation, but I wanted them to get off of social. I wanted them to not meet like, I don't know, like on Zoom or something, or through TikTok or something like that. No, they come out and they actually meet in someone's basement, and the person who made up the group, her name is Ever. She started the group. They meet in her basement. And it's just like 7 of them or 6 or 7 of them, and they talk it out. And why I did that was because the stories really layered, and this is like a deep layer of the story. But I really want to show that um, when you really have friends and work, you only need their validation. You don't need the validation of likes, validation of followers. You don't support you and really understand you. So you're not seeking out that comparison of this person on TikTok and this person on Instagram who just got 1 million and has this deal and blah blah blah. You're not doing any of that. You're just really focused on yourself, on being accountable to yourself and being accountable to those people. So I wanted to make again, this is a layer to the story. It's not like a surface story, but I want to make a statement about that because in a time when I think people look at Gen Z and look at young people and say, oh, they don't value connection. I actually think it's a total opposite. I think they need connection and value connection more than any other generation because of the accessibility of being able to talk to someone from anywhere in the world, like how we're communicating right now. I think that there's something lost a little bit in I don't want to say in your soul. That sounds a little bit esoteric, but there's something lost in that connection, and I think being able to meet in real life and not worry about the validation of others.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many great things there. Just to almost work backwards from where you started, it's not wrong necessarily to say soul, even if you're not specifically religious. Like the ancient Greeks had a word which became psyche, but it was originally something more like suke. In a way, it was meant to be the sound of breath because it was literally breath, and it was psyche, the breath of life, that what it means to be alive, to be a living thing. And that became psychology, the study of the psyche. And really it's, from way back then, it's like, this is what the breath of life is what they considered the soul. It's what left your body at the final moment. So not at all at odds to have that allusion to a religious thing, a soul, when really we're talking about, the experience of being alive and experiencing whatever that is that we are, that has that element, the psyche, the soul. Yeah, I think it's all the same thing personally. It's kind of what a wizard does. It in a way is like make these connections of like, it's all the same thing. Whoa, we've all been talking about the same thing for all this time, and this, but there's very important distinctions too, like you were saying. So there's all working backwards. There's a great concern that, say, biologically, evolutionarily, we are not programmed, designed, however you evolved to handle mass social media, that we are very much programmed for face-to-face, small group communication, a relatively limited bubble in a way of core relationships that keep us stable, and that without that we can't handle the other stuff, and the other stuff is no substitute. It's actually worse for us. So a lot of people are putting a lot of deep thought into that, and I think you absolutely hit on that with your book. Like, these kids were, they had enough to say, this feels important. It feels like this is the right way to do it. This is how we need to do this. So
this is how we need to do this. No, you're absolutely right in everything that you said, and I think you're also right to say that we're not conditioned for it because we never had to deal with it before, ever. So when would we have been conditioned to deal with it? When would we have been conditioned to deal with having to sit down and say to 200,000 followers how you feel today? You know what I mean? Like, that's just that's a very odd experience. It's an overwhelming experience, and that's why a lot of people, even the ones who are super successful on social media, still have to take time out to take breaks, still suffer from burnout, still say that they at some point they eventually don't love what they do anymore because they feel like they have to keep going and going to make this, to keep up with the followers, right? To keep up with the numbers.
Yeah.
To whatever end they have, and those ends might be amazing. Like, their goals and their intentions might be amazing, but the process of getting there is something that we have to question. And social media is only 10 years old, right? Like, more or less. Like, Facebook's older than that, but popular wise, social media is about 10 or so years old, maybe 15 years old. It's super new. That's like, we're still dealing with it. We're still figuring out how to deal with it. But I think now we really need to start, I don't want to say putting rules in place, but we should start putting at least some kind of principle in place, without kind of studies in place. It's been out long enough now that we could reinforce back into the way these algorithms run and the way that the social media runs, And then also do that, but then teach kids as they're growing up how to deal with it, how to be on social media, how to not be on it all the time, how to fact check things, how to interact better, how to know when, oh, if someone says something, there is a way to just unfollow these people. Like, like little, I know that sounds very simple, but just like not blocking things out, because you kind of said it right when you started with that. You can't listen to everything on social media. It's literally
impossible. Yeah.
Impossible. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think that's a very important thing. So I tend to be, and I don't talk about politics on the show, but I tend to be libertarian in terms of like, I don't like the use of force, and I wouldn't recommend government policy. It's my perspective. Some people might do it, but I think having this conversation and getting it out there and getting people thinking, what do we do about this? Like, even if no one's going to force you, you have to make a choice. Here's some advice. Here's what I would do. Here's what I think is the best path forward. And maybe I recommend it. My idea was stupid, but someone says, okay, he got 9 out of 10 things wrong, but that one thing he said, let's go with that and let's see what else we can do. But I think it's great having this kind of a book too that speaks to kids and say, look, one of the best ways to stabilize yourself in your life is to have that core group of friends that you can bounce ideas off of, and whose opinion really matters in a way that a follower can't on the internet, because you're never going to meet that person. They're never going to come over and help you move. They're not going to be there when you're crying because you broke up. You need someone who can hug you, who can actually reciprocate those direct, intimate relationships. There's no substitute for that.
Zero, absolutely zero. And I'm also, just to step back really quickly, I'm actually
Sure.
on the not implementing rules. That's why I was like, I don't know if you want to implement. And I'm not going to get political, but I'm with you on that. Like, I think it's more so on the like personal level, the local level, the conversation level. Like, how do families dealing with it? How are teachers talking about it? How are your friends talking about it? How do we get into those conversations so that it's a mind shift? It's not like this, like I don't know, this, like you said, the word force. It's not anything that's forced on you. It's just really how you think and how you feel. You just, because you have those around you and you've had those conversations, you just understand things. You're closing your mind.
Yeah,
I'm totally down with that too. Like I'm probably more on your side too. I'm a little.
Yeah, for sure. And it's contagious because if something is dangerous, sometimes there's what am I trying to say? There's an argument to be made that the one a lot of people go to is the idea of, well, you have a 2-year-old and they're going to run into traffic. Do you just respect their autonomy and let them run into traffic, or do you maybe grab them and stop them? There's an argument to be made there of protecting people from themselves up to a certain point. I think kids are different than adults. Once you're an adult, you should hopefully know enough, and we have to at least treat you as if you are someone who knows enough to make your own decisions and not be paternalistic and try to control other people's lives too much. But a lot of people take that wrong in terms of saying, well, what, you just let people do whatever? I'm like, yes, but I'm going to tell them what I think. I'm going to give them my best advice. I'm going to say, hey, maybe don't play in traffic. Even as an adult, that's probably a bad idea. And we're going to discourage that. And we're going to say all the reasons that it's a bad thing, and really having that out there so that nobody can miss it. It's not like, oh, well, nobody told me. Like, yeah, we all talked about it. We all made it a big deal because everyone needs to know there's, and even that, it's like, I would never want to, undo the technological progress that we have. I don't think we can, but also I wouldn't recommend it if we could, just because I'd say it's like any tool. Someone made this comment the other day of like, what was it? Was talking about fire, the invention of fire, and there was probably someone saying, "Oh, it's too dangerous. We shouldn't mess around with cooking things," right? And it's gonna happen.
A lot of people.
I lost your audio for a second. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. I'm saying someone probably did get burned when they invented fire. A lot of people probably got burned, but can you imagine the world without fire? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not even possible. Literally not possible. And I think we're headed that way with the way social media is. Like, it's connected. It's done so many good, and it's connected so many people in different ways. And it's really kind of gathered and built community in ways that would have been it just would have been impossible without it. I don't think we want to lose that, like, and the other advancements that have come because of that. I just think, like we've been saying, we just have to figure out a way to manage it and just get better at using it.
Yeah, and having that conversation is one of the important things, and that's yeah great. I keep coming back to your book. You know this. These are the kind of things I think maybe kids should be reading in schools. I mean, that's one place where an authority structure could properly use their ability to instruct, to say, here's something to consider. Here's something that seems important in this day and age. And I was talking to, it's like you read, and there's a great tradition of writing about, well, here's what today's youth are experiencing. It goes back to one of my dad's favorite movies was, oh shoot, it was Harrison Ford. It was in the 1960s or set in the 60s. Can you remember that one? Shit, it's not coming to me. It's a little,
I've watched a lot of his movies. Which one?
I was on the tip of my tongue. It's, yeah. No, I'm not getting it. But then we have other movies like Stand By Me in the 80s. That was a great one about the kids of that.
Stand By Me,
looking back on that time. And then I even compared that kind of stuff to then later Dazed and Confused movie talking about what these kids in the kind of 70s were experiencing as cultural shifts were happening. And I think every generation has to have, maybe not the voice, but some swath of analysis, looking fishbowl style from the outside back in, going, here's what people are experiencing, here's how they're handling it, here's what seems like it worked and didn't work. So if we were to get into that a little bit, I don't want to spoil the book, but are there some key relationships you think illustrate some important principles?
Yeah, I would definitely say Ever is the main character. She's about 16 or so in the book. I would say her relationship with her friend Candace, that they're best friends. They're the same age. They grew up together basically, since they're 5 years old. But their relationship is so um special, and but based off of like their actual experiences together and their actual interactions in real life. You know what I mean? Like they're Ever's like a protective person, so she's very protective of Candace, even though they're the same age. But I think I think building relationships, if you're going to look at the way a relationship should, because they argue and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
which is the point I'm going to get to. They argue and stuff, but because their relationship is so strong and because they really depend on each other and they came to depend on each other, the arguments that they have, and they have one big blow up, the argument that they have that can't break their relationship. It could fracture it a little bit, you know what I'm saying, and you have a little splinter, but it can't break the relationship. And and this is a generalization, so like I hope people don't me, but in my experiences, I'll say, and through my observations, I've seen a lot of young girls and young women. I have a daughter, by the way, I have a 20-year-old daughter. I see a lot of young girls and young women um, have these relationships where something will come in between them, and it just splinters the relationship, and it's
Mm.
over. They're gone. The
Mm-hmm.
relationship is done. And I'm like, no, no, like yes, you're gonna have this is bad, or whatever that person did to you is bad, or blah 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 blah. But if that person meant something to you for so long, if that person is worth fighting for, if that person really was a source of support, and you love that person, they love you, then you have to try to get that. Have to try to find a way to, to not to not ignore it, but to forgive that person and find a way to move on, because the friendships are too important, and strong friendships and strong bonds are too important to just give up on so easily. I
Yeah.
heard I don't remember who I heard say it in an interview, but they're like, you don't want to, and they were talking more about romantic relationships. So I'm talking about friendships, but they
Mm-hmm.
said you don't want to give up 10 years of greatness for 2 years of badness. You know what I'm saying? Like two
Yeah.
years of a rocky road when 10 years of greatness is waiting beyond that, they think it's worth it. They think that 2 years is worth it. Now, obviously, they're exaggerating, but I think what they're trying to say is like, this, when it comes to like relationships, and I'm going to talk about friendships because this is about friendships. When it comes to friendships, I think really underestimate the value of a really good friend. Like really underestimate that value. It's something that you should not like something you should actually fight for as you would for anything that you're passionate about. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
that for me is principles that are important. About friendship and community. And those values are like we spoke about before, are universal.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think that's true. And there's maybe a lack of appreciation of that in some of today's world because of the just staggering breadth of potential interactions you can have with people. That is kind of coming back to the social media thing too,
Yeah,
but even living in a really big city, you can meet
maybe. Yep.
thousands of people in a day. You can't practically do that, but you could meet any one of those thousands of people in that day. And what do they mean to you? And are you having connections? But just reinforcing the idea that an intimate connection is something that seems to be necessary to humans in general,
Yeah.
however you conceptualize that, and that it's also normal to have conflict within a friendship. So there may be some misunderstanding or misperception among some people that, well, if they were really your friend, they wouldn't have said something wrong or done something wrong,
Exactly.
and
Oh,
therefore
yeah.
you must necessarily cut all ties immediately. And by that same token, there are certain acts of betrayal or sabotage or maliciousness where it's like, you weren't who I thought you were. This is
Totally.
beyond, and you got to go. I'm not dealing with that.
Yes.
This is not to say that, but not to give up, so easily on something that really is important. Can it be repaired? Is it maybe it's worth trying to offer that olive branch and say, I was really mad for a minute. I've calmed down. I still don't like it. If you could just, hey, let me know you wouldn't do that again, I'd appreciate it. And we can just get on with our lives, given that opportunity for that to happen.
You said that perfectly. Like that is exact, especially when you said, we, if that person was your friend, they wouldn't have done that. That is like the trigger for people to be like, I'm cutting this person off, or there's this thing now where people are super entrepreneurial or super ambitious, and they'll be like, my friend isn't on the same level as I am, then I'm not hanging out with them anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Really? Like, what? Are we going that far into capitalism now? Like that?
Yeah.
So capitalism defines our friendships now? Like that is what you're telling me? You know what I'm saying? I'm all for making money. Trust me,
Right?
I'm down for it. You know what I'm
There's
saying?
nothing
Like
wrong
I
with
am
being
up
ambitious
for
either.
it.
Yeah.
But not. I'm not. I have friends that are not making half as much money as me, and I don't like that. Does not bother me one bit. They're my friends. You know what I mean? So
For sure. Oh, there's so many levels to that too. I mean, and here's something too. Let's say you get to a level where you have accomplished great things. You have that status of accomplishment, but also money. There's a big problem with people who are rich and famous and accomplished. How do they know who's their real friends and who's just on their payroll? That's a big deal. And so if you can have a relationship with someone for 20 years, and so what? He's a bricklayer. He's never read a book in his life. He's your dude.
exactly.
And he doesn't care he didn't care when you had no money, and he doesn't care that you got a bunch of money. He's like, maybe I get a car too, brother. But he'd probably be joking about that. That's how you know someone really likes you for you, because they liked you when you had nothing. That also works for romantic relationships too. You get a man and a woman, and they're both struggling. They get together and they rise together and build that together and gain that status together. That's a big. I was going somewhere with that out of my head, but
No, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. I agree with you. That's what we need to be fighting. You know what I mean? Like not this, not. Let's not take the ambition too far. Like you know what I mean? Like let's keep those friendships and keep those bonds and keep those connections and make sure that we're living full lives. Not just these one-dimensional lives.
Yeah, no, that too. Actually, where I was kind of going with that was, or a secondary thing. I listened to another podcast recently with a gal by the name of Temple Grandin, who some people might know the name. You can look her up, but she's like a high. So I got the tism, and she's like way autistic, but like ingenious, like in that idiot savant, what they used to call idiot savant, Rayman level in some ways, but she's not as impaired. Long story short, she's more of a visual thinker, and then there's linguistic thinkers. She was making a great point of the idea that we've, unfortunately, in elevating the idea of academic success and degrees and the ability to succeed in college, we left behind a lot of people who are truly masters with their hands. They don't do the intellectual stuff, but man, they can make things I couldn't even see in my head. I couldn't figure out how to build. And that has unfortunately become denigrated. And we've lost a respect for the shop class and the home economics type of thing, where people are doing more, sewing, crafting costume, garb, making not just costuming, but the idea of, fashion and design. You can do it yourself. And these are becoming lost skills, working with our hands. Yeah, I had a
For one
connection
though,
with that
like
too. Sorry.
it shouldn't though. Like that's
Yeah.
I have a feeling though. I have a feeling that those things are gonna come back. I
Mm,
don't. It's not based on any research. It's not based on anything. It's just based on a
yeah.
gut feeling.
No, I'm
I
with
just
you.
don't think that we will. We're gonna go. Well, I think my general sentiment about humanity is that when we go too far in one direction, something pulls us back a little bit.
I
You know what
agree.
I'm saying? That's my thing. But I could be wrong. I'm willing to be wrong on that.
I
But
think
I
it's very
have a
true, and I think the pendulum does swing. We go too far, and we go, this is out of balance. We can feel it. I think we do. I'm a big fan of the yin yang. I think it's always returns to balance. Um, One thing is that we're going to get snapped back to balance when we start realizing we don't have enough people who can maintain our plumbing and our electric grid
yeah,
because we have not given these things the proper respect
yeah,
publicly and said
yeah,
you're gonna become an electrician and HVAC installer. That's freaking awesome. You don't have to write
yeah,
a book or get a degree or make a podcast.
yeah.
They say, maybe that's a talent other people have. You got something else that is equally good and equally necessary. I think we're going to find out the hard way in a little while what we've
We need to stand up and cheer
sacrificed.
for those people.
Say again,
You're
sorry.
right. We need to stand up and cheer for them the same
Yeah.
way we stand up and cheer for doctors who go through 13 years of school. We need to stand up and cheer for the HVAC people, the electricians, the plumbers, the painters, the bricklayers, construction workers. These people are like essential,
Hmm.
essential to how we function. And we're just again we're downgrading them since I'm 39 now. Since I was in high school, we started that
Yeah.
like conversation of that like they're almost class. You know what I'm saying? Like we even had different grade levels, and a lot of the people who work with their hands were at a different level, and you made them feel a certain kind of way, and that's horrible. That's not where we're supposed to be at. Like these,
Yeah.
they're important, like you said, and I think hopefully again, I kind of fingers crossed it come back, but we'll see.
I think you're right. I have the same kind of intuition too. That whether we're gonna come to our senses and
Mm.
realize it before it becomes a problem, or whether we wait and it becomes a problem, we're gonna learn. We're gonna learn one way or
Yeah,
another. We're
one
gonna
way or
figure it
another.
out. Yeah, yeah. Right on. Oh, you know what? While we were talking a minute ago, the name of the movie came to me. My dad he'll be like, come on, Ben. American Graffiti was the name of the movie. And I think it was in
Oh,
the,
I don't know that one.
yeah, it was actually, I think, directed by George Lucas or Steven
Oh
Spielberg. I
wow,
think it was
okay.
George Lucas directed that before he directed Star Wars. He did American Graffiti. That was, I think, his first movie. I may be getting this entirely wrong. But anyways, that was the little slice of life cultural look at what were teenagers in the 60s experiencing.
Mm,
What was their, night out cruising with the friends on the strip? What were their relationships? What social and cultural interactions did they have with their friends because of the nature of the times? American Graffiti, yeah, it was a good movie. I
I,
appreciate that too.
I might check that out. I got nothing to do tonight, so well, I got some meetings after this, but after that, I think
Yeah,
I'll check that one out. Why not?
well, I don't know where to find it. It's old enough. It might be on like YouTube.
It'll shoot
With
somewhere.
commercials, or you could rent it or something like that. We'll see. I'm not sure. I'm probably giving people the wrong information. I've done zero research. I just barely remember the name of the movie. um, well, I was going to say, if there's more you wanted to say about the book, if there were other important themes you wanted to get into, to just because you have the mic, or we can transition into the dream thing. We'll try and solve a mystery together.
Oh,
It's
let's
up to
let's
you.
go to the dreams. Let's go
All
to the
right.
dreams. I mean, yeah.
Good deal. And so, as per usual, I never want to know what it is before we start. I will overthink it if I have advanced knowledge. So I never ask. I just listen, and then we. So I'm gonna shut up and listen. I'm just gonna write it down. You're gonna tell it like a story. The most recent, and you did mention it is a recurring dream. So the best way to approach these is the most recent example you can remember. We go through that one in as much detail as you remember. Then once we get a little bit of a grip on what's happening, we start relating it to the other ones and see where the common themes are. If that works for you.
Got you. So you mean the most recent?
The most recent instance of this type of recurring dream, and it could be 10 years ago.
Oh, the most recent.
Yeah, yeah. And then tell that one as a narrative, because some people start telling me, well, here's what the recurring dreams are about. Here's the common themes. Like, I want to get there, but that's usually like part of the second step.
Oh
If that
no,
makes
I'll
sense.
tell you exactly what happens.
Good deal. Okay, I'm ready when you
Okay.
are. I'll just shut up and listen, and we'll get this going. Benjamin the Dream Wizard wants to help you pierce the veil of night and shine the light of understanding upon the mystery of dreams. Every episode of his Dreamscapes program features real dreamers gifted with rare insight into their nocturnal visions. New Dreamscapes episodes appear every week on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and other video hosting platforms, as well as free audiobooks highlighting the psychological principles which inform our dream experience and much, much more. To join the wizard as a guest, reach out across more than a dozen social media platforms and through the contact page at benjaminthedreamwizard.com, where you will also find the wizard's growing catalog of historical dream literature available on Amazon, featuring the wisdom and wonder of exploration into the world of dreams over the past 2,000 years. That's Benjamin the Dream Wizard on YouTube and at benjaminthedreamwizard.com.
So it's always, some kind. First of all, I'm young. Maybe a teenager, but I feel like I'm even younger than you. And I am. There are uh, tall blades of grass, and I'm on my hands and knees, and on my stomach actually, and I'm crawling through these blades of grass, and there are, I never see them ever. I've never seen them in a dream, but it's like gunshots and violence, and I'm that, I guess that's why I'm ducking, and I'm just crawling and I'm crawling and I'm crawling. And the thing that always stands out in my dream is that I could literally like feel scared, which is totally weird, but I swear I feel scared in the dream before I wake up. And I'm crawling and I'm crawling and I'm crawling, and I hear people, always hear people. Nothing I can make out, but I always hear people. Um, and then I crawl to the. There's like a cliff, and I could even through the blades. I feel like I'm acting this out.
That's good. That's good. Get back into it. Yeah.
I'm crawling through the blades, and I see the cliff. And I'm like, for some reason, I feel like that's where I need to go, and so I crawl to the cliff, and I'm oftentimes I don't want to get to the cliff, and then I this part's always confusing to me. I don't know if I jump off the cliff, fall off the cliff, or like I don't know, or someone pushes. I don't know. No one pushes me off, but I go over the cliff like purposely though. Like I on purpose go over the cliff and then wake up right before I fall. Even though the cliff is where I feel like it was supposed to be my safety, it's like that's where I go and then it's over and I wake up. I've had this dream. Oh my gosh, I can't even tell you how many times. I literally can't. Like I can't. I have no idea how many times.
Well,
And it always goes the same way.
yeah, that is a good, let me write this down here. That is a good place to start, is the idea of how old were you when the first dream came to you of this type, and how recent was the last one?
The first time I had this dream, I was in my early 20s. So that would be like close to 20 years ago. That's the first time these dreams started.
Gotcha.
Um, Last time I actually had this dream was about a year ago.
Okay. Okay. So this is, okay. Broad strokes on the idea of recurring dreams. We tend to have a concept of an experience or the crystallized imagery of a type of idea that will come back to us every time we experience something similar to whatever made the first dream happen. So it's almost like what am I trying to say? If you were sorting blocks, I'm thinking my way through an analogy. You're sorting blocks. Every time you see a square hole, oh, square block. You pop it in. So in a way, this is the square block that you pop into the square hole every time you see the square hole.
Got you.
I'm going to work on that analogy. Just came to me. It's kind of the idea, but it's what fits. It's what's relevant to a specific type of experience in waking life generally, and the reason it comes back tends to be that we haven't quite figured out what it is, what is this square block and why does it fit there? And what makes the hole appear that needs to be filled with this image to express the way I'm thinking or feeling. So what we're going to try to do is get a look at these images and this experience of the dream and find out what it's trying to say to you. And then maybe we can look back and say, what experiences were you having at different times in your life that might have made it necessary to re-examine this idea or experience. Broad strokes on that. So how do we do that? The process is we start with, you are always a teenager in the dream?
Always.
Okay. So
always,
this is definitely
always young.
Yeah. Now, sometimes in dreams, people have no concept of themselves. I was just me today, me now, I guess. I don't know. I can't see myself in the dream, or I don't have any reference to how old I was. It's just me. So I'm like, okay, this is telling you, remember maybe some experience you had as a teenager or something relevant to the idea of being in the teenage years in general. Something about that time period personally or categorically that is relevant to, because otherwise it wouldn't appear. Did you have a thought? You can
I had my daughter when I was 18. I had my daughter at 18.
Okay. Do you feel like the level of teenager you were in the dream kind of corresponds with being close to 18, 17, 18?
Yeah, it looks like that. It looks like that age. It looks like as a younger version of what I was. Because I started having in my early 20s, so I felt like I always thought, for some reason in the dream I thought I was like 16. But yeah, I had my daughter when I was 18.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, and this is exactly how the process worked. I start rambling about stuff. I start saying, what does it mean to have this visual, this experience in the dream? And just my discussing it, my kind of unfolding the origami in a way, very often the guest I'm talking to says, wait a minute, an idea just popped into my head. This made me think of my daughter. You don't even have to know why. You just say it. Bam. That's when I had my daughter. Okay. So I think we got something there. You're like, zing, you feel it. You're like, this is relevant somehow. We don't say why. We don't know yet. But so there's something about there. Now, if we look at that a little bit without moving on, we could say, there's definitely a theme of, violence, fear, a protective process that you're going through to safeguard yourself. You're heading towards, what is a cliff? It's definitely an ending point. It's the end of the grass. It's the end, but it's also an escape from the violence in a way. So there's all these different things. We start looking at, why does thinking about being a teenager, anticipating the birth of your daughter, perhaps, bring this to mind? Well, we haven't gotten there yet, but that's where I go with it. I'm like, okay, now how does that all relate? So that's bam. And we should get more of those zing feelings of like, oh wait, I just thought of something else. Stop me anytime. Interrupt, go bam, bam, bam. Wait, stop. You're talking too much.
Gotcha.
I had an idea. Please interrupt. So there's these tall blades of grass and they're tall enough to conceal you. Like when you're, so it isn't just like, you're still visible. You are definitely
tall. Like I'm looking up at them and they're like 3 feet or something. Like they're tall.
Okay.
Basically.
And that's good too. So this is the experience of, you are camouflaged in a way. And I use that term because it's the one that came to mind, but you weren't behind a solid barrier. You weren't in actual cover. You still could have been hurt by a stray bullet. I mean, so this is the idea of like, if you were behind a solid rock wall, you wouldn't be afraid the bullets were going to penetrate. But in this one, you're conceiving of it as you are in a vulnerable position, but you do have the benefit of being hidden in your journey. It's like, definitely laying low is the idea.
Yeah.
So that opens up to other themes of the, what do we say in broad strokes? The idea of the benefit of concealment in some ways. If you stay off the radar of harmful forces, you can survive or be successful. There's something in there.
And hold on, sorry. I'm just thinking this through now. When I had my daughter, I actually had a really good support system. So my mom, my younger brother, my and my uncles, my grandmother, my cousin. Like, it was not just obviously her mother, but it was not just her mother was 1 year younger. Her mother was 17. We were really young, but we had I had support systems. So when you just said that it camouflaged, I was like, that feels like I was still vulnerable because it's still my responsibility, but I had almost like shields. You know what I'm saying? Like they were able to support. They were the blades, even though like it felt chaotic. It felt like violence. Like it was chaos. It was rough. Being 18 and a parent is not. But I definitely at the same time I'll be lying if I didn't say if I said I did not feel supported. That'll be a lie.
Yeah, no, for sure, and that's great. Just me rambling, and that's okay. Well, what I say is I'm happy to be wrong. So I was focusing on the different something else, but it's great that you brought that up. So there is exactly as you say, there's a benefit of cover that isn't as solid as something else. Like you were exactly like you said, like the responsibility was still there. The danger that you could make a mistake and fail was still there, but you had at least the support and the idea of blades of grass you could hide in that would shield you visually from being seen and targeted by danger. And that they're the recognizing that the humans in your life are also fallible and they're maybe as thin as a blade of grass
Yeah.
in terms of the protection they provide. Their protection is only going to provide a certain amount of protection. There's definitely strong imagery there, and there's also the idea of these tall blades of grass. That the idea of nobility came to my mind, like it was something noble in it. It's tall, something that stands tall and strong, even if it's just a blade of grass. That combination of vulnerability and nobility. I
And
don't know if that
nobility.
rings a bell
Wow.
with you or anything.
I never thought about nobility before. That's such an interesting even word. Nobility. Wow. No, I can't think of anything that rings that brings up.
Fair enough.
But
Yeah, that maybe
it's
just
but even when you
associates in
said
my
it, it
mind.
felt right, but I just can't place it.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm using the right words either. Too, it's like, and it isn't noble as in better than you, but like worthy of respect in a way.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, even the tall blades of grass. There's a mighty oak that maybe gets blown over in a storm because it's rigid and unyielding. But blades of grass, there's a very it's like an ancient martial arts tradition of bending like a reed in the wind, and being flexible and responsive, and even to the point of having multiple uses. A cow could eat it. You can hide in it away from danger. I'm probably just going
Oh
off
my
on
gosh.
tangents here.
Yeah.
But so all of this was just the concept of hiding, crawling on your belly in grass. Do you remember the ground being anything in particular, texture, or it's dusty, it's dry, it's muddy?
No, yeah, just dirt,
Fair enough.
mostly dark dirt. Not no rocks or anything like that. It's like I don't feel anything on my stomach, like I don't feel
Gotcha.
pain on my stomach or anything. It's just dirt.
Okay. That might be its own kind of significant ideas. You mentioned it as kind of a dark earth, and we think of that as fertile soil. What dry, dusty, good green, tall grass doesn't grow there. So you're definitely closer to this earth, and it's providing. It's the idea of being closer to this fertility of the soil, protected by the obscuring vision obscuring grass that protects you from danger, and also not throwing in, you're not crawling over broken glass and feeling your skin rip.
Yeah,
It's very comforting, soothing, and successful endeavor to get you to the edge of this cliff. You're not giving
yeah,
yourself messages of failure in that way.
yeah. And I almost feel like it's like because you're right. I actually never thought of it as dark earth until I just like really thought
Mm.
about what it looks like. And your dark earth is supposed to be the one that's more like what's the word?
I think I said fertile, or the idea of a
Fertile.
nutrient
That's the
yielding.
word. It's
Yeah.
supposed to be more fertile. Yes, fertile. That's what it's supposed to be. And like it's almost like I was so young having the child, having a baby. It's like I still had so much growing to do. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I had the opportunity to grow because of and the examples, not just the opportunity, but I had the examples um to of people who have done well and grow. My brother, went to Stanford University, went to the NFL. My mom was a nurse for 4 years actually. She just retired a few years ago, and she was like the most amazing mom ever. So I think just the opportunity to grow and to like, I feel like the Blades were almost also like examples, not just protecting me, yes, but just like examples I could look at and be like, oh, or they're on the ground, or the ground was just giving me the just that opportunity is just a word that keeps coming back to my head, but just giving me, just nurturing me. It was nurturing.
Yeah,
That's what I was trying to.
absolutely. I think all of these are very powerful ideas, and there is a protective quality to receiving good advice from a an effective role model that is not a kind of physical protection. It's not a brick wall. It's more of an abstract intellectual protection of like, here's how to succeed in specific ways. Here's how to best grow and flourish. So yeah, that's a great concept of the idea of something as thin as a blade of grass still being a protective quality, while all at the same time showing that you were nurtured by this same soil that is going to give you the chance to grow as tall as us. Yeah. And you don't have to be, running through standing tall yourself. You can be like, I need to lay low. I need to be very careful. There's a protective, self-protective caution to the experience I'm feeling. And that's very often the way we need to approach big decisions, big problems. And as much as having a child is a wonderful, beautiful, blessed event, and you look forward to it, you are scared as hell you're going to fuck it up and do it wrong. And I be as successful as the people who came before me, even with their great examples. So it's something we anticipate eagerly, and we are terrified at the same time of screwing it up. And I think that might be where, go ahead.
No. You're absolutely right. I just, sorry to break just 1 second because
Sure.
Somebody was supposed to have a meeting. I just want to talk about.
Oh yeah, no problem. I'm going to take a drink of water and I can vamp for a second too, because we also haven't quite gotten to, the exploring a little bit more the nature of the gunshots and the violence all around, and the voices that you heard people speaking. So we're going to get to those. Those are their own kind of unique experiences.
Yeah, I'm good to go now. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry
Yeah,
that.
no problem. Just review. It gives me a chance to review my own notes. If I get to try to read my own handwriting here, write so fast it's all chicken scratch. So you did have the experience of the crawling happening over a period of time. It wasn't instantaneous. It wasn't brief. If you had to say, it felt like a minute, 5 minutes. It felt like an hour.
I would say closer to like the half an hour mark, around that. Yeah, felt like a while. It could have
felt like 30 seconds, and it could have it felt like forever, but really I knew it was only 30 seconds. That's its own type of experience. But you actually had this is going to be, you're going to have to crawl, you're going to have to maintain this defensive stance, so to speak, on your belly for a period of time. You imagine this is as if it took and a half an hour is an interesting thing. So it's not a full hour, but it's not a minute. It's not a day. It's a more shorter contained period of time. There's something in there too, with it being not precise, but more specific. It could have been, I have no idea how long it took. It was indeterminate, but something about the cliff being that close, the end of the experience, the what am I trying to say? The cliff. I don't want to say too much about it because we're gonna get there, but it's definitely an ending point. It's I should probably leave that alone for a minute, and we'll get there. How did you experience the gunshots or violence? And you mentioned it, both of those things being different. So there was shooting going on. Did you feel like it was definitely aimed at you, or it was just all around you, indiscriminate?
I think it was around me. I don't feel like anyone was targeting me. Like I never felt directly targeted. What I was scared of is sticking my head up and getting hit. I always that's what I was most nervous about. So I always just wanted to stay below, as lower than the grass, lower than the tallest blade of grass. So yeah, I've never felt like someone was attacking me personally. It was just like this chaos is happening, and I don't know,
Okay.
crawling, whatever.
And you also mentioned that there was other violence. You said it was gunshots and general violence. Like,
Yeah, but
how did
that
you
part
conceive of that?
I can't explain that part. I know for a fact there was other violence, like other than gunshots. But it's not like I was hearing people scream. I heard voices, but the voices were more like talking. But
Okay.
I never heard anyone scream. I don't know. It's one of those dream things where I was just like, I just know like there's other stuff happening, but I can't
Couldn't pinpoint
articulate it.
any other specific instances of specific types of violence that were happening, just the
No.
knowledge. Okay, good deal. That's actually confirms what I was initially kind of conceiving, is that this feels to me, and you can always check with yourself too about, but just a general recognition that the world is a dangerous place, that there is danger all around, and that sticking your neck out in a way, putting yourself, failing to keep yourself in a properly defensive position will expose you, literally, in this idea of camouflaged by
Yeah.
dress, expose you to random violence. And it's good that you didn't feel like it was targeted at you, which it's a blessing and a curse too. It's like, if it was coming for you, you might be able to say, okay, I can identify, look, there it is. Now I can deal with that. This is like random violence. This is like all
Yeah.
the bad things that could possibly happen to me, to my forthcoming child. First, I need to survive, then I can be a good father, that kind of a thing. So I don't know if that resonates with you, that idea that this
Oh,
represents
totally.
the
Yeah,
general
no.
dangerous nature of the world.
Yeah, that's 100%. That's what I felt. It wasn't me. It was just like this world, this dream world that I'm in feels violent. Like yeah, that's kind of how I interpreted it anyway.
For sure. And I would guess, and maybe I'm wrong, you can tell me, but coming from Toronto, you probably didn't grow up in any areas that were heavily, you're walking to school, you're likely to get shot. I mean, like, you were not, you did
No,
grow up in
no, no. You're
Chicago.
not. No,
So
I mean, I grew
yeah,
up in community areas, but not like you're gonna die. No, we never had this. No, I don't think there's hardly any place in Toronto like that.
yeah, I didn't think so. Yeah. But that is interesting that the dream kind of crystallized it as, well, this is specifically a threat from guns in a way.
Yeah.
I don't know if you grew up in a hunting family at all, or had much exposure to it, or if that's kind of
No, but there are guns in my area. Like there's some like I've seen guns and stuff like that, and I've seen gunfire and I've seen like stuff like that. It's just not. It just wasn't like a not like a huge part of my upbringing, but like my area, because it was a community housing area, there were those things around, but it wasn't
okay.
prevalent.
So in your younger days, you may have seen actually some examples of people being harmed by guns. So you'd say, "Oh,
Yeah,
this is a real potential threat, not not an abstract." Oh, I heard someone got shot somewhere. I'm like, I knew that guy. I knew his brother.
yeah,
Okay, gotcha. Well, that's a really good reason why that specific type of threat. You'd say, abstractly, what are you doing in your mind? You're saying, it's as if I need to be aware that this type of violence can happen again because I've already seen it before. I know this is a realistic threat versus a
oh, for sure.
fantastical threat. And even sometimes fantastical things, planes fall out of the sky. You may not want to worry about that, but it has happened.
It happens. It happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Just made me think of Donnie Darko. Oh, it's one of my favorite movies. You've never seen that too. Great, bizarre, kind of, I don't want to say too much. That Donnie Darko is one of
What's
those
it
movies.
called?
Donnie Darko. It was actually one of
Naughty Dark.
Jake Gyllenhaal's first movies when he was younger. Donnie Darko. Yeah, that's one of the movies that you don't want to know anything going into it. Like, if you've
Okay.
never heard of The Matrix before, you've never seen The Matrix, do not look up anything. Do not look at the memes on the internet. Watch that movie blind. Watch Donnie Darko blind, and just go, what is this? It's blowing my mind. It's a great movie. Anyway, I don't know why that jumped into my head. I get all kinds of random associations. So you also heard voices, but you couldn't make out what they were saying.
Not at all. Just chatter.
Chatter. It sounded like did it sound like the people doing the violence talking to each other, or just random people that were also out in the grass
It
with you?
it sounded like what I'd imagine military people talking like. That's kind
Okay.
of what I assumed. At least that's what I assume. Again,
Gotcha.
that's an assumption. That's an assumption. But it was just like it just whatever I don't know movie I watched or something like that. Like and I would assume military people speak like that's kind of what it sounded
Sure.
like.
That's interesting too. So yeah, that's what I was trying to get to. Of like, it could have been, and it wasn't, but it could have been. Oh, I heard the snippet of a conversation of these people that sounded like they were just sitting down to have a tea party. That's its own kind of experience. Or I heard, an employee asking for a raise. That's its own kind of experience. It's all kinds of reasons people communicate to each other. So the idea that even thinking back on it now, the association popped up of it felt like what you would imagine military chatter would be back and forth to either commanders issuing orders or soldiers yelling, fire in the hole, things like that.
Yeah.
So very much that adds to the all that to say that you're in a sense in the middle of a war zone. That in some ways life itself is like trying to survive, getting through this ongoing battle that's happening all around you at all times.
Yeah,
I don't know if that resonates
totally.
at all.
That is totally, totally, totally. And you know what? As you were speaking, I literally just thought of something else too. Um, I had, yes, I had my daughter when I was 18. When I first started writing my first book around my early 20s, so I was like 22 or 23 or something like that. I first started writing my first book. And because I don't know exactly when the dream started, I don't want to correlate those two things.
Sure.
But that did happen. I did start writing my book in my early 20s as well. And then um, I don't want to fast forward too much, but that like I'm someone who always wanted to write. So just to give you context, I wrote my first book at 8 years old. I'm a lifetime wanted to be
Nice.
a writer, right? So
Yeah.
this is a lifetime dream for me. And I got my first traditional publishing deal last year, like a year ago, like 2021,
Yeah.
the beginning of 2021, I got my first publishing deal. And it's been about just over a year since I've had this dream. Um, and I don't know, I don't know if I'm
That
making
just
like
came to
making
you.
stuff up,
Yeah.
but
I
you know,
this might clarify for you. There is something like giving birth to a novel. Once you've
huh.
created it and published it, that act of publishing, there's the gestation of writing it and the birth of publishing it.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Does that's you're feeling something
Yes,
there?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Because it was and and I bring it up because when you're talking about um, like the world and the randomness and the chaos and the military stuff, it's been such a long struggle. Like I mean, like I had to self-publish 2 books and I had to do this, and I got my first agent, lost my first agent. I thought I'd never like could be a full-time writer. Like it was a struggle, and pair that with the fact that I was young. I didn't even have a job yet when I had my daughter.
Mm.
Um, so I had to like pair that with the chaos of being like 18, 19, 20, like the first 10 years basically of my daughter's life, and being like totally lost, not knowing what to do. Even though I went to university, still being totally lost. Like it felt like I don't like to compare it to war, but it felt like a war zone. At least that's what it
Yeah.
felt like. It felt like that, you know? So it's just wow, I never sat down to think about those things. It was a lot going up, and it did feel like any wrong move could be murder in a way. Like it could be
Yeah.
fatal. You know what I mean? Because there was so
Absolutely.
much at stake. It was my daughter's life at stake. It was my learning to be a man while raising a kid. Like I said, I never had a job before I had my daughter. So like learning to be a man. Um, taking care of somebody else, learning to make money. Oh my gosh, learning to make money
Yeah.
was such a struggle. Oh, I didn't start really making money till I was 30 years old, like sustainable money till I was like
Mm.
30 years old that could really 'cause Toronto's very expensive. So that could sustain a family, you know. So it was a fight, man. It was a
Oh yeah.
fight. So I'm
There,
just
there's a long tradition of comparing the struggle to survive, to make it in the world, to a battle, to the idea of a
mm,
military conflict. I mean, a lot of us might conceive, nuclear families and extended families as battalions that are working together, that teamwork style to conquer and confront the challenges that present us all, whether we're struggling against a competitive job market, against other people, or just the struggle to survive in nature. We gotta have a roof over our head, food in our bellies, and some heat when it's cold, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so and I understand that too. Is like I've never been in war, and I don't want to pretend I have. But that analogy is valid because we know what war is. We know what it's like. The idea of this struggle in a competition, and it's life and death in a lot of ways. I mean, if you
Yeah,
can't pay the bills, you're out in the cold. I mean, it's
yeah,
more deadly and dangerous and dramatic than a lot of people think. That has decreased in modern times to some degree. We have so much ubiquity of not just luxuries, but you know, like say you go back 50, 60, 70 years, not everybody had a refrigerator. Certainly not everybody had a television, you
yeah.
know, and air conditioning and all these other things that how effective and efficient we've been able to come in manufacturing of different things and some shortcuts we've taken with outsourcing jobs that may or may not be sustainable in the long run. But anyway, yeah, so all of this to say, I don't want you to feel any worse than I would of saying, my imagination compared the struggle to survive to a being in a war zone. Fair enough. I think it really is for a lot of us.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Long story short on
That's
that
what
one.
you help.
And then we're finally to the cliff, and
Yes,
yeah.
this is
So
the part I want to know.
right. Yeah. And so my first conception of that was it's a terminal point, and not just terminal like death, although death is the termination of life. So we say, terminal injuries and terminal illness, but it's also a transition point between there's ground, there's no ground. There's, support for your belly to rest upon and the grass. And now you're in the open air. You're launched on something where there's nothing to grab onto. There's no stability. There's that. It's also the act of it specifically related to the birth of a child. There is the cliff of that baby is now born. She's here. That's a cliff of a kind. And we are metaphorically thrown off a cliff in a way, thrown out of the nest in terms of like, you better learn to fly. This is happening.
Yeah, yeah.
So those were my initial impressions. I don't know if you wanted to say a bit more or if
No,
it inspired anything.
that after talking, I feel like that makes like perfect sense because it's literally like, are you gonna fly or are you gonna just like let yourself crash to the ground? You know what I'm saying? Like, and I for the longest time, literally till this conversation, I always saw the cliff as peril. Like I thought it was just something like I'm falling off something, I'm gonna die. But I actually think that again, the conversation kind of sparked it. I actually think it's not peril at all. Actually, almost almost like freedom, or almost like you're ready. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
you're ready. Like you think you're not ready, but you're ready. Like just jump. You know how people tell you like crawl till you're ready, and then eventually you have to leap. Like I feel like it's just like just leap because I never made it to the ground. Um, I was and the thing that why I think makes you right is because I was headed towards the cliff. It's not like I was
Yeah.
like scared of it. Like I was scared of everything happening around me, but I was headed for that cliff. I'm like, I need to get there to get safe, you know?
Yeah.
And so why would I head there if it was perilous, if it was like I'm going to die? I don't think so now. I actually think it was like, let's go, Kern. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Definitely one of those representations of an unavoidable experience. Something is coming. It's going to happen. And you're moving yourself towards it willingly. You weren't looking for a way to get around this
No.
cliff. You're like, this is, even if it is going to be scary, if I'm going to lose my footing, my connection with the earth, my support of the grass and nurturing soil and whatnot, I'm good. This is something that you get an acceptance, like it has to be done. That it's going to happen whether you want it or not, and it's a good thing, and it's going to be scary, all at the
Yeah.
same time, which is what some of
All
the
at the same
best
time.
experiences are. Yeah.
It's true. It is so. Wow.
Yeah, just enjoy the
Wow.
moment. I don't need to rush you through it. I love these feelings too. I watch you have it and I'm like, I want to cry. I love this. People go,
Amazing.
I
That
see it. I see it clearly now. You just kind of held it up, shined some light on it. You turned it at this angle. I'm like, I see it. That's the square. That's the hole. Oh my God.
felt
That's
so,
why I do this.
it felt very um like I was intimidated by this team for so long. You know what I mean? Like I was just like, I don't want to have it. You know what I mean? I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't want to give again. I don't want to.
Well, you report having very real, the experience of fear during the dream. And
Yeah,
it's very common that we have unpleasant experiences in our dreams. We're like, can I just not have that when I'm supposed to be resting? Like, can I go in
yeah,
my dreams and not have the same worry I have in the daytime? Come on, please.
exactly.
Right? That'd be nice. Um,
But I like this though because this conversation actually makes me see this in a totally different way now. You know what I mean? Like I
yeah.
feel like I've overcome something now. You know, like I did pretty good.
Yeah, no, I think so too. And it's great that, okay, so we got all kinds of places to go here. This has been a recurring dream. So as I said in the very beginning, it keeps coming back, the square, every time the hole comes up. So probably in broad strokes, and use different language, please, if I'm not saying it quite right or if it inspires you, but the idea that you see certain challenges of birthing a new project like a book where the outcome is uncertain. You don't know if you're going to fly or fall off this cliff, but you're going to approach it willingly. You're going to pass through the necessary danger to get there. You're going to do it smart. You're going to take all the necessary self-protective measures and rely on the nurturance you've got through life. So in a lot of ways, it's like every time you're approaching a new uncertainty in the future that may result in a benefit or a disaster, this dream maybe comes back to say, you've had this experience before. You've worried that if everything was going to be okay. And so sometimes the dream comes back to say, hey, you're having this feeling again. Sometimes it comes back
Yeah.
or it comes back to say, you've been through this before. Remember, you've got this. You were worried and it turned out fine. It's going to be fine this time too. I don't know which one feels more right
Oh,
to you.
I bet you because the dreams came in like clusters. It would happen recurring for like days in a row and then
Mm,
not for like a while again, then recurring for days in a row. I guarantee you, if I went back and recorded when, it would be every time I was in like super writing mode for my book. Every time.
yeah.
I guarantee that would be it. It would be like when I was the most time because I remember one instance like definitely when it was during that time. But I bet if I went back in all those instances, it would be like when I first started writing my book because I was like I had no idea what I was blah 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 blah. When right when at the near the end of self-publishing my first book when I was like, oh my gosh, no one's gonna buy this book, blah blah blah, and I had that. But I could almost guarantee it. I bet you that's what it is. You're so right. We freaking nailed this shit. Oh
Wow.
my
That is amazing. And okay, so now the real proof in the pudding, and it would, okay, two things. It would be fascinating. And I would love to do this. And I have no idea how. I'm not a research psychologist, but trying to track people's recurring dreams and see if we can really nail it down and prove my theory. Because I think my theory is good, but it's a theory. I've had feedback that it's true, and people say that feels right. But I would love to have the data. That would be like, here's hard evidence. Here's a study that tracked people. That would be number one. So I don't know if you're out there doing stuff, get to take that one on me, but make it happen. I'd love to read your work. The other side of it is if we've nailed this down, it may, two things might happen, broadly speaking. The dream may stop entirely. You're like, you got it. You finally processed it through enough to know why it needed to come back. Now you can actually let it go, and you may start having different dreams of a different themes. Like you solve one problem, your brain moves on to the next. Probably start having a different kind of recurring dream. It's almost guaranteed. Or this dream will come back, but the nature of it will change. The process of going through the grass will change. The grass itself will change. The earth will change. The voices will become more or less distinct. The violence will increase, decrease altogether. Maybe you'll stand up and look around and be like, what was I worried about? You'll get to the cliff and there will be a water slide. You will transform into a bird. Any of these things are possible. And I mean, I just put all of them in your head, but broadly speaking, the nature of the dream may come back, but it may change. And I've seen that happen before too, where once you process the core message, now you're ready to think of, okay, well, what's next? What do I do now that I kind of get the idea? So I always tell folks I'd love to hear from them. If the dream changes, let me know. If it never comes back, I mean, I'm still waiting to hear back from some people. Maybe it means
I'll totally let you know.
Yeah.
I will totally let you know for sure. This has been amazing. I have to jump off the call, but I wish I did it. This is so good.
Yeah,
This is
I'm glad
way
you got
better
you a
than
good
I
answer
thought.
in the time frame you had. It's not always
Oh
easy
man,
for me to do that. So,
this is way better than I thought. Like seriously, this has been amazing. Thank you so
oh, I'm
much.
so happy.
Seriously, this is
Thank you.
great. Now I'm gonna go back and listen to a bunch of your episodes.
Oh, right on. Good. Always happy to have another fan. Well, let me do the housekeeping. We'll wrap it up
Yep.
and get you out of here. This has been our friend Kern Carter from Toronto, Canada, writer and author of the book Boys and Girls Screaming, available on Amazon. I'm gonna drop a link in the description below. Check that out right now. For my part, if you would please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, get one of my 15 currently available works of historical dream literature, also on Amazon, and you can find that at benjaminthedreamwizard.com. Books link, audio podcasts, and much more, as the kids say. And just once again, Kern, thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you. This is amazing. Thank you.
Right on, everybody out there. Thanks for listening.